everyone. We are back today with Janine Puses. The last time I talked to her, she was 1 week away from her delivery, and she was very nervous and also really worried about how the delivery was going to go, but most worried about how breastfeeding was going to go. So I'm really excited to talk to her 12 weeks after her baby Josh was born to learn how the delivery went and how things are going today. So welcome, Janine. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about what has happened since we last talked.
So I think when I talked to you last, I was like 38, 39 weeks. And so I naively thought that my baby was going to come around my due date, not any later. Um, the last couple weeks were super hard for me. I remember like just having mood swings and being super emotional. Like I hadn't cried like my entire pregnancy. And there were 2 days when I just burst into tears, like over nothing. I was so sensitive to people asking me when my baby was coming, and I know people only ask those questions out of care and love, but I just thought it was the most irritating thing ever. I probably Googled, signs of labor 1,000 times. But I didn't actually end up going into labor until I was 40 weeks and 6 days. I'd actually had an induction scheduled for 41 weeks. So it's kind of funny that the little guy decided to come the day before. Um, but yeah, last couple weeks were definitely tough. You feel really heavy, really swollen. You just are so over being pregnant, and yeah, it was tough, but I made it.
Yes, you did. So you had a doula. Was she
Yes.
helping you in those last couple of weeks right before delivery?
Yes, she was awesome. She and I would just text back and forth. Sometimes I would call her because I was really kind of concerned about things like the mucus plug. Like I had no idea what that was supposed to look like, and I was too queasy to like Google it. So that was one thing I was like, I'm not gonna look at other people's
I don't
pictures.
know if you'd like to see other mucus plugs
Yeah,
other than your own.
yeah. So I was like, okay, like I would text her, be like, hey, like, I've had a lot of discharge. Is that normal? Or, felt like a glob came out. Like, is that my mucus plug? Or, hey, today I'm feeling really lethargic, blah, blah, blah. And she would tell me, guess that's normal. Make sure you're staying hydrated, try to go for a walk, et cetera, et cetera. So it was just nice to have someone to like bounce ideas off of and just make sure that, everything was normal.
Yes, that's great. That's wonderful. So, did you have any of those like practice contractions? Were you in prodromal labor before you went into labor?
I was not, and I was kind of expecting myself to because I had had some Braxton Hicks probably when I was like 28, 30 weeks. So I figured I'd had them before, and I thought, okay, I'll have some more, and then eventually I'll, go into actual labor. But I had no contractions, none. And so that was actually frustrating for me because I was thinking like, oh my gosh, why isn't my body doing anything? Like my due date's come and gone, nothing's happening. I
Right.
think when they checked me at my last doctor appointment, I was dilated to maybe like a centimeter and a half, you
Okay.
know. So for me, it was nothing until the water broke.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that day. Um, it sounds like your water ended up breaking, but you take us through.
Yeah. So in the last few weeks of pregnancy, a lot of stuff comes out down there. Like it's just what happens. And so Sunday morning, it was 4:45 in the morning. I had to go pee for the 17th time that night. So I went to the bathroom, did my business. As I'm like walking out of the bathroom door, I felt like more pee came out. And so I was like, okay, that's weird, but I am very heavily pregnant, you know.
Right, everything's been
It's
coming
right.
out for the past three
Exactly.
weeks.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, just go back in there, clean myself up. So I went back in the bathroom, cleaned myself up, went back into bed, and just for some reason, I just felt really uneasy. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't get back to sleep. And I want to say probably like 20 to 30 minutes after that, I started experiencing, excuse me, what felt like menstrual cramps. And I had kind of heard that contractions can feel like cramps at the beginning, but they were very weak, very mild, not really close together. And I wasn't really timing them at this point either. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to sleep this off. Still couldn't fall asleep. Decided to go downstairs and get myself a cup of tea. So I go downstairs, I'm in front of the fireplace, sipping my tea, and I stand up from the floor and more comes out. And not it wasn't a gush, it was just it felt like a very long trickle. And so I was like, you know what? I don't think that's pee. I think I probably had like what they call a high leak, or it doesn't gush out, but it just kind of trickles out slowly. So I was like, you know what? I'll call labor and delivery and just see what they say. So I called them and she's like, yeah, it sounds like your water probably broke, but take your time coming in. What time do you plan on coming in? And I was like, well, I still have to wake up my husband. He's probably going to want to take a shower. We'll have to get our stuff together. So we'll probably see you in an hour and a half. She's like, great. So I wake up my husband. We got all our stuff together. At this point now, the crampy feelings that I was having were getting closer and closer together. So I had an app on my phone and I started timing them. And when we left the house, they were probably 6 minutes apart. And by the time we got to the hospital, just like 15 minutes away, they were like 4 or 5 minutes apart.
Good.
Not full. I could still like talk through them. I wasn't upset. But I was like, okay, like I'm probably in labor because this does not feel normal.
Yeah.
So they checked me into triage and they said that they had to give me, I don't know what they call it, but it was some sort of a test to make sure that whatever was coming out of me was actually
Amniotic fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they gave, because I hadn't had like a huge gush. So they gave me the test, but it actually said that it wasn't amniotic fluid. And so they're like, sometimes the test can be inaccurate, but even though it sounds like your water broke, we're just going to keep you here for a while because you're not dilated yet to a 5. You're only at a 4. And so I was frustrated because at this point now, my cramps were getting much more intense. They were 3-4 minutes apart. I was not able to talk through them. So the doctor said, hey, why don't you try walking the halls for an hour, come back, we'll check you. As long as you're at a 5 by then, we'll admit you. I was like, great. So my husband and I start walking the halls, and I don't know what happened, but like in the next 10 minutes, the pain was so bad. I felt it mostly in my lower back and my lower spine and tailbone. So the nurses were telling me that I had really bad back labor. And at this point, I had also been in contact with my doula, and I was like, hey, things are escalating pretty quickly. And she's like, okay, I'll be on my way. But she's coming from Seattle, and my hospital is about 30 minutes away from there. And so she's on her way. And so my poor husband is like in charge of dealing with me. And he was really good, but I'd be like, okay, rub my lower back. And he'd rub. And I'd be like, no, higher. And he'd rub a little higher and be like, no, lower. And I'd be like, stop touching me.
Right.
And then he'd try to like talk me through it. And I remember at one point I was like, shut up, you're not helping me. So the doctor told me to walk for an hour. I walked, I think maybe for half an hour, stopping what felt like every 10 seconds because the waves of pain were just too much. And I was like, babe, I cannot walk for 30 more minutes. Like, we have to go back. The doctor has to check me. I can't handle this anymore. They had also asked me if I wanted an epidural, and I had previously declined it. I walked back into that room and I was like, give me the drugs. Like, I need them now. So they checked me. I was at a 5 already. So I was happy about that. But then when I asked for the epidural, they said, okay, you're first in line, but the anesthesiologist is in a C-section right now, so we don't know when he'll be out. So you're just going to have to wait. So I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So I get admitted into my room. My doula got there at that point and she was really helpful. She was doing a lot of, back massage for me and she knew what she was doing. She was assisting me with like different positions on the birthing ball, different things like that. But the pain was just really bad. Like I was moaning and groaning and screaming. I think 45 minutes passed, and in that 45-minute time frame, I went from a 5 to an 8. And finally, the anesthesiologist was ready, but they were like, hey, you're at an 8. Like, you're so close. Do you think you can do it? And I said, no. It hurt so bad.
Yeah.
I remember thinking during labor, like, this is the only child I'll ever have. Like, this hurts too bad. I don't think I can do this again. But I got the drugs and it was instant relief. Just so awesome. By the time, the drugs were in my system, they checked me again and I was already at a 10. But they said, you know what, like, it's been really intense for you. So why don't we let baby's head work its way down just a little bit more? And then we'll try pushing in maybe a couple of hours. So I hung out in bed. My husband was so funny. He was like, it was like an exorcism. You were like the devil, and then you got your drugs, and then all of a sudden you're like back to being normal, nice, Janine.
Yeah, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
Those the epidural really does. I mean, it blocks that pain from traveling basically to your head, so you don't feel the pain. It's still happening, but
Yes.
it just blocks it, which is really fantastic. And it can be, I mean, it can really change the whole experience of your delivery. Though
Yeah.
you probably, yeah, if you had just given it maybe 30 more minutes, you might have been 10 or maybe less. Who knows? People do change like clockwork.
Yeah.
Um, but you had gone through so much so fast, which sometimes
Yeah.
a fast labor can be really, really intense. So it sounds like
Mhm.
only 2 hours maybe went by. Would that sound about right?
Yeah, it was just a few hours for me basically to get to a 10. But we waited to push because I was exhausted by that point. But I remember after they stuck in the epidural, I was like, oh, I don't feel anything anymore. This is amazing. Hey, I like asked my husband, hey, am I still having contractions? And he was looking at the monitor and he's like, oh, yeah, you are. And then I looked down at my legs and my legs were actually like trembling. Um,
Wow.
it was really crazy. And the whole time, my doula was amazing too. She held my hand. She was like super encouraging. When it came time to push, I had her on one side, my husband on the other side, and then the OB nurse was like at the foot of the bed, and all three of them were just so supportive. I was super happy that like my team was there. I was really happy that I decided to go with the doula. So yeah, I pushed for an hour and a half, and then he came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. It sounds
Yes.
like a really beautiful and sort of perfect situation. So you had time to get your epidural and it
Yes.
worked and you weren't pushing forever. So that's
No.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. It actually like it didn't feel like an hour and a half. I remember I asked the nurse how long it had been, and she was like, "Oh, it's already been an hour." And I was like, "Oh, it did not even feel like an hour." So
Wow, that's
yeah,
great. Um, what time did you deliver at?
1:45
Okay. AM, PM?
p.m. So water broke 4:45.
Oh
We
yeah.
got to the hospital 7:30, and then yeah,
Okay. Makes
yeah.
sense. Wow, that's cool. So after little Joshua was born,
Hmm.
did you immediately breastfeed? Did they try to get baby onto the breast like within the first hour?
Yes. So I had also discussed with my doula like a very extensive birth plan, and then just different preferences that I had. Like I didn't want them to cut the cord right away or like delay cord clamping, I think is what they call it. Um, I wanted immediate skin to skin. I didn't want, too many people in the room right after that. So the hospital was super attentive to all of my requests and everything went well. They did try to put the baby on the breast right away. And it all worked out great. We didn't really have any problems with latching or anything like that. So I was super happy about that because as you remember, that was like my big focus. I just really wanted breastfeeding to work out.
Yes.
Um, it was painful. Like the first couple days, like after your milk comes in, I was like, whoa, did not know that my boobs would feel this sore,
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
Yeah. That can be the hardest time is the engorgement period. So like three
Yeah.
to 5 days after delivery, your milk actually comes in, which is what you've been waiting for and wanting this whole
Yeah.
time. But at the same time, they can feel just really hot and full and rock hard.
Yeah.
So, but you got through that. Did you use anything in particular to like help you with like gel pads or
Um,
anything?
yeah, like so I want to say like a couple days after he was born, maybe 4 days after he was born, we had our mom and baby care appointment back at the hospital where they, observe you breastfeeding and they weigh the baby before and after to make sure that he's actually getting stuff. So when they weighed him, he was actually getting an ounce already per side, so 2 ounces total. So that was super encouraging for me that, what my body is doing what it needs to be doing.
Right.
And then she just gave some really good tips on how to ensure a really good latch each time. And then she had recommended these cooling gel pads
Mm.
that I think Medela makes.
Yeah.
So I bought a couple of those, and those were super awesome because my nipples were cracked and sore for a few days, and
Yeah.
there's much that can
Touch
really
them.
that. Yeah, exactly. Like you
Yeah.
don't really put anything on them, but you know that you have to like take care of it. So that, and I use some, I think it's by Earth Mama.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they have like a really cool nipple butter, and so I use that too.
Good.
But yeah, I was just once you get, I feel like through the first week, then things start to you kind of get used to things. And then all of a sudden, I remember one day thinking like, oh my gosh, my boobs don't hurt anymore. Like it doesn't hurt when he latches on. It doesn't hurt when he latches off. Because I used to wince and just cringe every time he would latch on because it hurts so bad. But
Yes.
yeah.
Some women can't get through that time. Would you have any recommendations to is it just really just grin and bear it kind of, or like knowing that there's an end to this? It's not going to always feel like razor blades.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say like if you can stick to it, just stick to it because I mean, I understand it. It was so bad for a couple days there, like I wanted to cry a couple times because it just hurt so bad.
Yes.
Um and so I mean, I was lucky that it only lasted a few days for me. I don't know if maybe for some women it can last even longer than that. Um but it's just so worth it. I mean, breastfeeding is awesome. It's convenient. You know you're giving what's best for your child. So
Right.
I'm just really thankful that it worked out for me.
So Joshua, that's great. Joshua is 12 weeks now.
Yes.
Um, and he's gained quite a bit of weight, right? How much does
Yeah.
he weigh now?
So he was 8 pounds, 3 ounces at birth. And I believe he's about 14 pounds now.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. And
Hmm.
he's strictly breastfeeding.
Yes.
Great. Are you finding that you're getting sleep through the night? How is that? I mean, you're probably not sleeping through the night yet, but how is he
So,
doing at night?
yes. So sleeping through the night. I want to say the first couple of weeks, as with most newborns, his days and nights were all flip-flopped around. But he got adjusted to that new schedule pretty quickly. Um, he was probably waking up every 3 hours or so, at the beginning. And then he was doing super awesome a couple weeks ago where he would sleep 7 hours, wake up once to feed, and then sleep another five. So total 12 at night, waking up once. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But then I spoke too soon because then a few days, like he did that for a week. And then, I mean, he's growing, right? So babies change all the time. And the last week or so, he's been waking up more frequently. But last night, again, he only woke up twice in the night. So I feel like, now that he's getting bigger and this time between our feedings is getting longer and longer, he goes every 4 hours now during the day. So, like last night, he went 4.5, 5 hours between feeds. So we're getting there. We're getting, yeah,
Definitely, that's great.
yeah.
So, how did your husband do? What would he say about your delivery if he could? Like, was it a crazy experience for him? I mean, he saw his wife
Yeah.
acting like, the exorcist. So, and I guess for a time it was just him, and you were going
Mhm.
through, a lot of labor during
Yes.
that time.
I mean, he was awesome, honestly. Like, I had a couple people ask me, like, oh, why'd you hire a doula? Like, isn't that your husband's job? Um, and yes and no. I mean, he's never done this before. I had never done it before. So I'm not about to expect him to be like my birthing coach when he's a newbie at it too. But he was amazing. Like when I was pushing, like I said, I had my doula on one side and I had my husband on the other side, and both of them were just speaking words of encouragement to me the entire time. And I mean, that's super empowering when you're going through something like that and you really don't know how close you are, or how long you're going to have to go. Having that support with you, especially when it is your husband standing right there with you, is super amazing.
Did you guys did do a birthing class, I think, before you went into labor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was present for that too. So that's
Yeah, it kind of covered everything, like breastfeeding, swaddling, diapering, all of that.
right. Now, did you have a doctor deliver you or yeah.
Yes. And so we love my OB, and it was a bummer that the day that I went into labor, he wasn't on call. It was his day off. But the doctor that was there who delivered my baby was totally great too. But I feel like doctors are pretty in and out, like when it comes to delivery. Like the lady who was the most super awesome was the OB nurse who was in the room. I mean, I felt like she did most of the work. She was checking on me and helping, wipe away the poop when I was pushing, like all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, everyone that we had at the hospital was awesome.
Good. Yeah, those labor and delivery nurses, they are like saints. I mean, they do so much, and the doctor comes
Yeah.
in kind of right at the end, which is fine,
Yeah.
which is great. But
Yeah.
props to all the labor and delivery nurses out there that are definitely
Seriously.
wiping away the poop and
Yeah.
doing it with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
So great. Um, do you have any tips for like the new mom? I mean, the gel pads are great, but anything maybe just to keep strong in the last 3 weeks?
Yeah. And then I would just say, like, don't get down on yourself. Like, I remember the first couple weeks, I think, the hormones are still surging through your body, and it's okay to feel sad. And a lot of people had told me that, but like, you do actually really do feel sad. Like, I remember listening to lullabies with Josh, and then I would just be crying for no reason. And I'm not that person. Like, I don't just cry. So for me to just be crying because I'm listening to some pretty lullaby is pretty out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
Um, and like the night feeds can get pretty lonely. And like I remember the first couple weeks just dreading the nighttime because, he was still not really sleeping. You're still trying to figure out the days and the nights and your feeding schedule, and your boobs hurt, and it's not like your husband can feed the baby, and like it can get really lonely and overwhelming. Um, so it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel lonely, but it does get better.
Good. And if it doesn't, then they should seek help.
Yes, you should. And I actually really did appreciate, like, at all the postpartum doctor's appointments, and even at the pediatrician's office, they're very, um, proactive about asking the moms, how are you feeling? How are you adjusting? You can always call us. So I was very impressed with the amount of literature that is out there for people who might be experiencing postpartum depression or anything like that.
Good. Wonderful. I'm glad
Yeah.
they were asking the questions because
Yeah.
yeah, that's the hard part is like asking because sometimes people don't ask and
Yeah.
it's so common. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah, those emotions and those hormones can work wonders on women. So, in good ways and bad ways, to be honest. So yeah, that is a good tip. Is just to kind of let yourself cry and know that it will get better. And if it doesn't, there's always someone to talk to. So that's
Exactly.
really really important. Are you pumping? Are you doing any breast pumping?
Yes, I am. So we got, I think it's called the Medela pumping style.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, yeah. So I have that one, but I actually really enjoy this other Medela pump that I have. It's a hand pump, and it's like on one side, and you just do that. But that's super convenient because I can bring it with me, like in my purse, anywhere I go. And if I'm feeling particularly full, or like if I know that my baby's going to be at grandma's house and he's getting a bottle there and I'm going to be missing a feeding, and then I can just quickly pump wherever I'm at. So yeah, I've built up a little bit of a stash. I'm not super concerned about building up like a giant frozen stash right now, but yeah, I definitely am pumping.
Cool. Do you have any plans to go back to? I know you were teaching girls to ice skate
Yes.
even while very pregnant, which was so
Yeah.
impressive to me. I don't know how you did that, um, but you're amazing. Do you plan
Thank you.
on do you plan on like juggling the whole work having a baby thing?
Yes. So I've actually already been back on the ice. Um, but I'm only doing it like once, maybe twice a week. Um, so yeah, like work is still very much on the back burner right now. Joshua is definitely my number one focus right now, and I'm very lucky that I can do that because I know not everyone has the luxury of being a stay-at-home mom. Um, but yeah, it's nice for me to just be able to have something to do once or twice a week,
Yeah.
but still be at home with my boy.
Yeah. He is so cute. I can't
Thank
believe
you.
he looks so big. He's all
Yeah.
grown up now almost.
I know.
He looks so cute. So great. Well, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad we could touch base and find out how your delivery went, and I'm glad it went really smoothly and breastfeeding's going great too. That is wonderful. So I'll post lots of pictures and I'll put the links down there of the products that Janine mentioned so that you can take a look at them. And that's it. So nice to talk to you, Janine.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you too. Bye.